Start with the reading and the approval of the minutes for our September 17th meeting. Need a motion?
Make a motion to accept and approve.
Okay, need a second?
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, on to the finance report.
I'll make a motion to receive approve the check detail as presented.
Okay, I need a second for that.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
And I'll make a motion to accept the cash flow as presented.
I'll second that also.
All those in favor?
Aye.
On to the audit. April, you want to talk about that?
So we've used BST for the last 5 years, and we requested that they send us a proposal to extend the contract for 3 more years. So for this past audit, it was $11,100. They did a slight increase for 2020's audit to $11,250. The following year would be $11,450, and then in 2022 would be $11,600. Renee and I are extremely pleased working with them. They do rotate their auditors that come in and the person who supervises them each year or every 2 years. So we have the auditor, and we also have our accountant that looks at our books.
April, when are they up for renewal this year?
Yes.
Okay, are we required to put that out to bid or a?
No, non-professional services, similar to our lawyer.
Okay.
And my recommendation is we extend with them for 3 years. They know the IDA, they've been really pretty seamless. We've had some issues with some other auditors that don't necessarily come in here and understand the IDA, how the books operate and stuff. And due to the fact that they do switch the primary auditor every 2 years and they switch the supervising auditor likewise. So we did. The reason they recommend you do it so often is, you got the same old guy on Main Street's been doing your audits for 40-some years. This is a top shelf company that does it, so I think we're well protected there. And that, given the fact that we have an independent bookkeeper that comes in once a month, and does the journal entries. And we've got really, for a small organization with 2 staff, we've got really had the extraordinary physical controls here and that stuff. So that's the recommendation. Good morning, Mr. Good morning, Paul.
I just wanted to add, our books are difficult because we have the 3 separate accounts where we operate in separate from our parks accounts, and then we have the pilot account, which is completely separate. And they understood that, even though they report to the ABO, they give me the numbers exactly how I have to plug them in for the cash reports.
So if that's the case, of the board's in favor, we should have we need a motion
Need a
to.
motion to extend them.
I'll make a motion to extend the auditor for up to 3 years.
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor? Aye.
On the office relocation, April and I finally got a chance to go over and meet with Aaron and Wendy at their office building on Sunset Boulevard. I think it's going to work out great. We'll have 3 rooms. It'll be less space than that. It is in a farmhouse. Aaron's going to redo the parking lot, et cetera, over there. And we're working with Wendy now to tie the numbers down. But the deal I have with Aaron is we would just pick up the expenses. Pick up the heating, the electric, the cable, which we pay that all out here anyway. So we would be basically paying no rent. We'll be in a little bit tighter than we are, but there's one big dining room that we'll turn into a conference room, a room that comes in the front door where April will be stationed at, and then I'll have an office in another room. So I think both of us are pretty comfortable that we can make this work. Again, we'll be a little bit tighter as far as the conferencing goes, but the conference room would be bigger than the one we used for years and years and years up front here on the other side. So I'll keep you posted on that, but it basically, and at this point, I'd say got to figure probably between now and the end of the year sometime, because he's got to put a couple walls up, put a second door so we can jointly share a bathroom and some things like that. On that. On the solar policy, what I'd like to do is defer the discussion on the solar policy for right now. I've been waiting on some more information I thought I'd have for this morning for you, which I did not get yet. So if we don't mind, we'll defer that. I'll put that back on the agenda for next month. Likewise, under priority active projects with Columbia Memorial Hospital, I'd like to ask us to go into executive session, but for the purpose of a confidential contract negotiation. But I've asked Eric that we move it to the end of the agenda, and so that's okay with everybody, we'll just move that down to the end of the agenda. New projects, new projects. So in both cases with both of these projects, we have no application yet, but we have had multiple meetings and extensive, some back and forth with the parties on both sides. On the Hudson Champlain Power Express, for those who are familiar with that, that's like a 335-mile power line that's going to run from Hydro-Quebec to New York City. Actually, Maggie, I meant to reply to you in the article you sent me yesterday, because with NYPA looking at renewables to replace the peakers, I don't know how they're going to do it in New York City, which makes it all lends itself to being supportive of this power line coming in. And the goal of this power line basically is to bring renewable energy into New York City to meet their mandates. Right now, this line is sized for 1,000 megawatts. What they've been talking about is maybe increasing the size of that line to 1,250 megawatts, and that's DC current. So there'll be a converter station somewhere in Canada. There'll be a converter station in the city, converts it from AC to DC, pushes it down. There'll be two cables, they're about this big around, all in with a copper core, probably about 4 inches in the middle. They're Greene County, it's completely along the railroad tracks with the exception of in Catskill, comes off the railroad right away and goes through Lehigh Cement Plant back into the river, and then the last mile goes down the river.
Does it get buried at that, when it comes off
Yes.
by Lehigh and all that, it
Yep.
get buried?
It's all buried along the railroad tracks, it's down.
Oh, it's even along the
Yeah, railroad
tracks,
tracks, it's
buried.
all
The whole
buried.
thing is buried.
Where does it come out? Because it's under the river.
It comes out up around Whitehall or
It
something.
comes out up there and then land and then it goes
Yeah,
back in
maybe
down
it's a
the
little
river.
further down from Whitehall, but it basically comes out where the PCB issue starts, where the hotbeds
Fort
are up there. And maybe it's more like
Fort
somewhere in that area.
Box area.
It comes back out of the river to avoid the PCBs, down the railroad, back into the river. And then there's one little place in Rockland County where it comes out. There's a significant habitat area there. They come back out down the railroad tracks, back into the river again. Now, this is a merchant plant. So unlike the rest of the utilities, if you know how the tax rolls are done, the railroads are all done on advisory assessments that are done by the state. Every so often they issue those, or if you do a revow, they'll ask you. The same with power utilities. And there's two sets of tax rolls for that. One, there's a rate if a public utility is across private property, like an easement. And there's a second roll if it's a public utility and a public right in the public, and they own their own right of way, like NYSEG or Central Hudson or any of those. This is a merchant plant, so they are completely subject to full taxation. The state does not issue any advisory appraisals on this. The Greene County portion is estimated right now at about 175 million through Greene County. Let's face it, by the time they get to doing that, that'll probably push that number well over 200 million, I would imagine. They will be coming in looking for, I expect an application to come in by the end of the year. They will be seeking the full suite of benefits, sales, mortgage, and pilot. What'll be interesting is that we have like 7 taxing jurisdictions, 4 towns, 2 villages, 3 school districts. So this is going to be interesting.
What are they going to be looking for sales?
Well, they're going to be subject to sales and use tax on all the supplies and
All the
materials.
materials.
Right, but they're not going to buy them here.
They are still subject to them though, the way.
Right, so if they buy it, anything that it's.
Anything that they buy to
The
build this
construction portion
is
is,
they're going to be.
And that typically runs, for a building, 40 to 50% of the actual building cost is sales taxable. That's the rule of thumb I use now.
That much, yeah.
What would happen in a case where you're buying internationally?
That's what I was
I
thinking.
think if they're buying internationally, you bring it in, you still have to pay the
Yeah,
state.
because I think that's where the use part comes in.
Yeah.
Sales and use tax,
Because I mean, it's a pipeline or it's a
Yeah.
conduit. I'm trying
It's
to
a conduit.
It's a conduit,
And they,
right?
they put a
So
trench in there and they gravel it up but all that material,
All that
the stone
material.
is all taxable.
Yeah, there'll be a fiber optic line that runs
Right.
with it also for monitoring the system itself.
And then there's a ton of cases on whether that's exempt or not. It's a whole mess on whether fiber optic lines, because there's a definition of real property. Fiber optic cables, for cable television is exempt, the cable itself, but then there's like a bunch of cases that they've made a mess as to whether it transmits electric signals. I'm in this stuff and I don't really totally understand it.
It's interesting. What kind of revenue would that generate for the county or the towns?
Well, they, like all good applicants, they put forth a proposed pilot schedule. And again, of course, they know that nothing does an application and an action by this board, but the proposed pilot schedule puts about 130 million over 30 years. Because that's what they'd be looking for. It's like a 30-year pilot. We've never done one that, but this is a unique project.
So they're doing multiple counties.
Every county.
Every county, I mean, they're starting in Canada.
Yeah.
That's why
every
I
county.
said, except where it's in the river.
No, because it's taxable in the river.
Yeah, so.
They don't own the river.
That's
I mean,
tax.
the county doesn't
So
own
New
it.
York State,
The federal waterway,
Yeah.
how's that work?
it's still taxable real property because.
Half the county goes
So
into
what
the
it
middle of
borders?
the river, yeah,
Yes.
even though it's,
Yeah, it's, so, okay, so what Renee said, so if a utility property is on private property, then it's regularly assessed by the town. If the utility property is in what's called the public right of way, okay, so it's in the road, then what happens is New York State Board of Taxation and Finance sets an assessment, and then you just multiply that number times your equalization rate, and that goes on your roll. So that's called special franchise. Then there's railroad ceilings, which is what the state sets the value on those. So those are kind of weird little nuanced things.
Right.
But they have ceilings on that. So, it's gonna be a big political mess, it sounds like, when they get everyone involved in this thing, so.
It's that's a lot of incentives to line up along the line. Now, I did ask them in the last conversation what about this tier 4 incentives through NYSERDA? They said that while it will be nice, it will not make or break the project. But the project will go on without it. That's what they represent at this point.
I mean, is it gonna be much of an impact if it's next to the railroad and,
No
I
impact.
think it's zero.
I mean, there's like zero impact
Especially if it's buried.
on anybody.
yes, so any of the, and now, okay, how are they gonna, I mean, dealing with these railroads is a nightmare to deal with them in terms of a real property. I don't know if any of you have had that experience, dealing with, trying to get licenses and easements and crossing rights, because they're the Andrew Carnegie and,
Yeah.
kind of robber baron era carryover from the 1900s, so.
I'm
That's all
assuming-
CSX down through there. I mean, it's
I'm
all-
assuming, Paul, that they've got that worked out there. They have all of their federal and state permits that they need. So that's a big,
It's CSX the whole run, so
Yeah.
that's good. Man,
Yeah.
got one railroad.
One
to deal with.
entity,
They
yeah.
Probably have already dealt with that.
yeah, I'm certain. I'm sure CSX did not turn their nose down at revenue stream for
Revenue.
them because
They
there's
just
gotta
spent a
be.
bunch of money widening that corridor too.
the projected time of doing this?
It all really now at this point is kind of contingent on, the city signing basically a power purchase agreement to take this power, to buy this power. So God only knows when that will happen, but they are anticipating, they would like to break ground next year. They would like to get going on it next year.
Is it solar generated power or wind?
Hydro.
Hydro?
Yeah,
Wow.
God, I can't, I mean,
And-
it's been
and
under, what, 5 years, longer, 5 or 6, 10? It's
this
been
has
10
been
years?
10 years it's been going on.
Yeah,
Wow.
this is the project, if you think back, is that initially the whole plan was under the Hudson.
Right.
And
Right.
then fishery, then lots of people wanted to know how that was gonna happen, but that was the initial plan for this thing.
Now, some of the environmental groups that supported it originally, like the Riverkeeper, have now pulled their support. Another thing, talk about the elephant in the room. What would this have as an impact? Not that we would probably control this in any shape or form, what's the impact it has on Athens generating? So here we already have a peaker plant that's in our county that, that's on its 4th bankruptcy. So if 1,000 megawatts of power are literally being pushed right out there past their back door to the
It
sea.
just goes on the grid, so it really is just
Right.
another competitive factor.
Yeah.
So I don't think it has any impact. It's just more, I think if there's more supply, then in theory, the price will get depressed, but, God knows. That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Supply
always
and demand, that's-
sounds good in the
That's
sound bite,
crazy
so.
talk.
Well, we
Coming
can,
from the positive guy in the
Yeah.
room over here.
I know. But we'll have to cross that bridge. So what I've been working on, and I spent like 2 days Googling trying to find something on valuation of these power lines. There is like nothing out there. I found very, very little. I think I found one study from out west, which put the tax rates pretty comparable with solar actually, which being somewhere between 5 and 6% of gross revenue, okay?
Where's NIPA on that? I mean, not on the project, but it would strike me since they're the biggest generators of hydropower in the state. like, how does their stuff flow through all of
They're
their,
exempt, so that's number one, they don't have to, now, so I think.
even from the property tax, when their
think all
stuff
their
is,
stuff is
all of
exempt.
their stuff is exempt?
Yeah.
There's your competition.
Yeah. Well, because NIPA don't have any real, I don't know, it's a long way across the state, I think they figure, and the transmission's the biggest problem. You can't push this kind of energy in New York City without some transmission.
Right, but most of NIPA's power, I mean, it goes downstate.
700 miles of transmission.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, but it goes down the western part of the state,
Yeah.
most of it, not so much. The only place they got east is Gilboa, and I don't know where Gilboa feeds out to be honest with you.
I know one of the lawyers for NIPA, so I'll ask him how they deal with it, but I mean, like, the only transmission case that I'm aware of is a gas transmission line, and that was just done on cost. Now, that's maybe 10 years ago,
Right.
but no one's done, because, again, do these things trade? Does anyone sell these things? So if not, I mean, if we're gonna do it the traditional,
Yeah.
assessment matter, it's based on the cost less depreciation,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, there's no real true arm length sales on these things. But
No.
usually some investors are taking out the others, or some, so cost will probably be the factor we'll have to use. The numbers will be big. Don't forget, at 1.7, at 175 million or 170 million, the IDA transaction fee alone is like 1.7 million, okay? On that, so I'll keep you posted as we go. It'd be a learning curve. I've been inviting Ray Ward from the County Real Property Tax Service to sit in on the meetings with me so that the county learns about this as it goes. But
So Renee, you believe a application is gonna be forthcoming here?
I have been told directly that an application is expected by the end of the year, right after the first year. They're serious, and they seriously need to line up their ducks on all of these tax payments, as they move forward on
And in
it.
terms of us, a pilot actually could help with some longevity.
Couple of things coming down the road that could result in some very, very big fees.
So I think the mistake we made is that we never took a fee from them. If we're not,
For the application volume?
No, not the application fee.
Oh, for the actual project?
Yeah, because.
We'll work on that one this week.
Okay.
That won't happen again. You know me.
Renee, I mean, look,
I know.
we all care about the longevity of this place. So
Yeah, absolutely. No. We will clearly factor in, which is, as you noted, when we adopted our fee schedule this last time, we have a category in there for miscellaneous fees, okay? Nothing wrong with what we did last time, but it's kind of burdensome. I've been going back through a lot of old press because we're trying to clean up the office and watching when we went for the pilot agreements with
So-
much less complicated way to do this, I'm certain.
This would benefit two school districts, right? Catskill
Greene.
and,
Ravina, Queen, Selkirk has a small piece of it, Catskill and Coxsackie. And then you got towns of New Baltimore, Coxsackie, Athens and Catskill, and then you got the villages of Catskill and Coxsackie. Doesn't go through the village of Athens.
oh my God, we'll be in public hearing heaven.
Well, that'll be another thing.
Can you do them all in one, or you have to do each
It
one?
says you gotta have it where it's located, so we'll have to go, we'll just spend the day, I mean, what the hell, more is better than
Yeah,
less.
well, with the villages, I mean, you could do the village and the town.
Town
in one
together,
shot,
correct, yeah.
And the school district too.
Yeah.
So actually, it wouldn't be too.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, I fully expect an application. These guys are moving forward, full force. Strategically, I think they need to line these things up so they know where their numbers are, and then, like I said, Maggie just sent me an article yesterday where under the category of environmental justice, NIPA has agreed to take a look at all their peaker plants in New York City. And I've seen some pictures of some of these peaker plants. They're kind of nasty, they're right in the middle of the city. And about converting them to some kind of renewable source. I mean, what are you gonna do? You can't put a windmill farm up in the middle of the city. You can't put and when you need it is at night, so you either gotta start doing big battery projects, or you're gonna take the easy way out, and you're gonna say, oh yeah, here it is, we're buying, peak power, they just push more power down the line from Canada when we need it, which would make this more viable yet on that, so. Okay, on the key capture, energy, I fully suspect they are telling me they will have an application into us. Again, this is the battery storage project in the town of Cairo. Just for, the town has recently passed, a NYSERDA, model ordinance, to address these things and to allow it. The town is favorable to the project. Again, you remember what the kind of the caveat with this is that they're acquiring a 21 point something, somewhere in that neighborhood acre parcel. And they don't need to use but just 1 or 2 acres of it. And the town is concerned about that acreage being lost and not being for future development. And so the town had asked them to either find some way to do it. Somebody came up with the brilliant idea of donating it to the IDA. So now again, every discussion with Key Capture, they understand that all of this is moot, that these are just preliminary pre-application type of discussions, and everything is subject to being fully vetted by staff and then approved by the board here. Where they were, again, to Freddie's point, I'll be the negative one, they want to give us something, and then the detail is, well, if we get an IDA benefit, we'll give you that instead of our transaction fee. We're like, well, I don't think that's gonna happen. So where my counter kind of proposal to them was maybe a 50-50 deal on it. And I'll get the number, when we have an application, I'll bring you forth all the numbers for it. But at 50-50, it works out good for it. We can work out really, really good for us on that. But they should have an application coming in any time. We would they will be requesting from us sales and mortgage. So one complication here, and maybe it's not even. So they'll be looking for sales mortgage and pilot, but they've already want to do a host benefit agreement in lieu of the taxes with the town, but they can't really do that. So we're gonna have to basically, I think, roll that host payment in lieu of taxes into the pilot, because the town can't do that. And I've never seen a pilot where it exempts or affects 2 taxing jurisdictions, but not a third of you.
It's gotta be, okay, so there's a case that says if you're giving portion of the pilot revenues outside of where the project is located, that's illegal. Okay, so it's gotta be an affected taxing jurisdiction, so one which encompasses the project, so.
No, so that's all fine from that aspect, but I'm just saying, because
I mean, a host community agreement is a contract between the host community and the developer. So.
yeah, so what could happen in this case is the pilot could be just a 0 to the town. And it could cover 0 to the town because they're already covered by the host agreement.
Correct.
0 to the town and the pilot, because that's, just trying to think through the mechanics of
They
it.
have to agree in the allocation agreement that they get nothing, and then that they would further have to agree between the school and the county as to the split.
No, because they're looking for us to do the pilot on the school portion.
I understand that. Whatever we do on whatever number or percentage, then if the town is excised out of it because they're getting a slice somewhere else, then that piece has to be broken out on a percentage or agreed upon by the 2 remaining, with the third, the town saying, we're okay with getting nothing.
We should pursue that discussion more, because I'm not so sure on the agreed upon portion. I think that my interpretation is the idea can set up the pilot. I mean, we've always followed the traditional apportionment, by 70 sums. But I think we got a couple projects coming up here where the impacts are not equal across the taxing jurisdictions, and I think our pilot will need to reflect that.
But the law says that it has to be based on a percentage of tax rates unless otherwise agreed upon. So what I did for Athens and some of the others in here is I got an agreement signed by all 3 of the jurisdictions saying, well, not only will we take this percentage, but this is what we'll take it over the time. So we, again, it's a further discussion that we have to have so that we get consensus.
Right. So again, it's another project that'll be coming out of Pike. It's brand new to us. Nobody, again, knows how to value battery storage projects, because there haven't been enough of them and there haven't been any real sales. So once again, we're probably on a build cost basis as far as valuing it. The value will be somewhere between 15 and 20 million. And that is largely contingent on what type of batteries they choose to go with at the final design phase. Something to do with fast cycling batteries versus slow cycling batteries. They haven't made that final decision yet, but it'll be somewhere in the 15 to $20 million range. We will need to have a conversation, because Paul, I think what I'll do, and we're way ahead of the game here really, I guess, but I probably will encourage the town supervisor to allow the terms of the community hosting, because there's nothing else in there other than the annual payment. Okay, I'm gonna probably say, look, why don't you just let us roll all this terms into one pilot? Because you as a town don't wanna, we do this every day as far as enforcing pilots and collecting and doing, this, might be something new to you. Why don't you just, if you agree to this amount, we'll just roll that into the pilot. and have it in one standing contract. And I'm sure that John Coyne would go along with that. He's, you know, a real good guy on that. So again, an application to be expected from those. Both of these will be new, unique projects, will take a little bit more work than normal. Now also, nobody knows where we're going on the big solar project, so anytime during the coming year, those applications could start to roll in the door here on that. Okay, just finishing up here with just some quick updates. Exit 21 East. Again, the throughway is moving. They are moving into the appraisal phase. They finally, for the land we want to purchase there for relocation of Stewart's. They are done with the survey phase. Anyway, painful process, leave it at that. I will never, ever try to buy a piece of throughway land, ever. But we're moving on that. Stewart's are still definitely very much interested. We're going towards the appraisal phase, and there's really not too much more going on that. On exit 21 West, we're gonna circle back to Columbia Memorial Medical Center here in a minute on that, but you know, we keep continuing. Basically on the west side, we keep getting requests from people. I actually got a request from the Enforcers, which is a motorcycle club, which is all law enforcement like that. They were looking for a place they could maybe lease for a clubhouse. I said, well, yeah, pretty much, no.
Be a big lease.
Yeah.
In the Greene County,
Yeah.
biker.
Oh my God. And look at me, I'm a rider, so.
Yeah, right,
You know,
Lease
but,
at
and
the
we
gas
did,
station.
The optics may not be that good, yeah.
somebody wanted to put a coat of paint on it and open a tire store, and I said, no, we're really holding out. We want something that will fit in that area, you know, et cetera, so. And I have not gotten any word back from the housing, and the last thing is we're working with, Central Hudson right now, an extension of that natural gas line. If you remember, we already paid to upgrade it a certain distance and plan to to extend it. The extension cost is probably gonna be up there. It's probably gonna be over $1 million. Columbia Memorial is highly desirous of this natural gas and is basically willing to contribute. What that means yet, how this happens, and what the formula might look like, yet to be determined, but they do realize that the IDA can probably not promise to deliver this, full freight. Now, Camptown also said they would love to get the natural gas, because what they're gonna do is, all the cabins and the units are all gonna be mini splits that are run on propane, where they run the heat, the hot water, and the air conditioning all off of gas. And they would love to switch to natural gas. I just don't know if I could pull this off on time to get a schedule, where there'll be something for them to tie into when they need to tie in. That's my only big worry with that. Thruway said they would take it. So at least we have maybe a couple other small users that'll help bring that price down, but I'd be prepared to get a little sticker shock when that comes in, and then we're gonna have to really take a good hard look at the numbers and pro forma to see whether we can afford to do that or not afford to do it and make it work. Hunter Coach is still up there and viable. I've been monitoring the emails. Pete Hunter's just struggling to get his engineer to get his darn site plan ready to get into the planning board. And part of it was COVID originally, but now not a lot of good communications between the two of them. I want to watch it, but anyway, it is out there, still happening. April, when did his first we should look at that, his 6 months option period.
For Hunter,
Yeah,
didn't he extend it?
we set it for 2 months, but he ought to be coming up, just check on that for me. Because if you recall, we had a couple of these guys on 6 months free for 6 months, no cost, and then a 6 months with cost.
His business must have gotten hammered in this, because they're, running trips to the city is a core component, and it's done. The shows, the everything, exactly.
Yeah. He still is indicating he wants to move forward. I guess, he sees the longevity and
Sure.
looking past the crisis or whatever. But it is still out there, it is still viable. He's still got his option on the property. Casco Golf Resort, I've circled back to the principals on that project last week, and when I'd spoken to them a month or two ago, they were basically, the investors had gotten, I don't want to say cold feet, but everybody had gotten a let's wait and see look attitude. And then what happened is this summer, we were talking earlier before you came in, Keith, about the sales tax numbers being up so good for the third quarter. The golf course is having its record year they've ever had. And so when I talked to him last week, he said the investors are happy, and it's most likely they'll break ground sooner rather than later. So again, they're still viable. Empire Riverfront Ventures, which is the Flack project downtown. If you haven't been down by there, He's working on the event center, the windows are out, the brand new roof is on it. Managed, the lieutenant governor was down last week for her little, little shake and greet type of thing. Good for him. He is doing all the right things. He has retained Justin Smith. I actually met Justin for the first time when I was down there with him last week when the governor was there. Excuse me. He's got John Bishop or Bishop Baudry, for construction management. John's really crackerjack. He does a good job. Justin does a good, so he's got the right crew of people in there working with him now. They expect the event center to be up and active and running by spring, summer. And they expect to start breaking ground on the hotel portion probably first thing in the spring. There's a lot of heavy structural work that has to be done. In fact, not to get us all into the details, but the building they were gonna put the 3 stories on, they're now talking to SHPO about letting them take the building down, salvage the brick, put up a viable, solid construction framework, and then resurface it, with the brick, which will make it actually a better project. Otherwise, they're gonna have to put big piers inside, basically build a building with piers inside the other building and hover it over the top.
The curtain wall inside the building.
Yeah. So
The
he-
outside becomes a curtain wall, yeah.
So he's moving. I know he's had, Angela Mazzone's been down and has been like crazy about wanting to book this place. And he's got a couple of other top-level caterers who've come and looked at the facility who are all, it's a nice facility, let's face it. There's not much like this right on the river like that, with those views and stuff. So anyway, he's doing well. Of course, we need to get him to, get with our attorney, but I told him I'd hold off a month because I knew you were jammed
I
up.
spoke to Justin last night, just coincidentally, so he's
Oh.
fully engaged.
Yeah, so, I know you're completely jammed up with Freeport.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to Camptown out today. Finally, we got caught up on that.
Okay,
Our office, with this power, we lost 2.5 days. Our office was closed down because we lost power completely.
yeah.
I'm telling you, if you've ever experienced that, did you guys, anyone lose power?
Yeah, we were out for 2 days.
Yeah, we didn't lose it here.
It was unbelievable. Because, I didn't put my documents up on the cloud. So I have a server because I wanted to protect my client's assets. And, that's a vulnerability, which, you just don't think about it until all of a sudden you go to punch in your computer and you got nothing.
What kinds of generators up there, Wi-Fi, wireless, come on.
My clients, the Masries,
Yeah.
didn't have a generator in their building,
Yeah.
so I was sitting there at the house, doing a few things, but if you don't have your documents in a place where you're accessible, then you're dead for, till the power, literally, it was a mess up there. I don't know if anyone saw, what it was
It
like.
was a mess all over. It was crazy,
Yeah,
the way that storm came
never
through.
seen anything like it.
Yeah, literally, I'm looking out the window and everything's kind of going vertical, right down the street on Washington Avenue Extension. And my normal ride home is 5 minutes. It took me 2.5 hours to get home. Just because trees and riding
Same
around.
thing with me. I almost ran out of gas, actually. In Ravina's, I was able to get gas in Ravina. That's all the way from Albany.
Power was out everywhere.
It is crazy.
Mother Nature has her way of showing us what's up. If there's no other questions or anything on the rest of this, then I would like to recommend we do the chairman, that we enter into an executive section for the purposes of discussing a confidential contract negotiation.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to enter into executive session. I need a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, just give a minute for April to
Motion to adjourn?
Yeah, no, wait, we gotta do it right, gotta do it legal.
1 second.
And then you should make that
Go ahead.
motion again.
Okay, so we need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to come out of the executive.
Oh, so I'm gonna make a motion to come out of executive session.
I'll second that.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
And just want to know for the record that there was no decisions made and/or motions or resolutions put forth during the executive session. And with that,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
1 second.
aye. Sounds all cool and
Is
groovy to me.
November